So earlier today, the Department of War released the second batch of UFO files with more documents and videos, including audio from Apollo 12 describing mysterious streaks of light and one intelligence officer accounts of seeing orbs. Following that release, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett posted on X saying, quote, "Let's keep digging. Thank you, President Trump." Now, while UAP whistleblowers, former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, Luis Elizondo, thanked President Trump and called today a milestone in transparency and disclosure. Congressman Burchett and Lou joins us now. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining the program. You know, Congressman, despite the pressure from establishment people and people calling you crazy, you're responding to the American people, and they want more transparency on this. And I get the sense that you're going to keep pushing.
I am, and thank you for having me on and being on with Luis Elizondo. He's a real hero in this movement, served our country, and he continues to do so. The truth is that it really, Donald J. Trump, he kept his word to me. I asked him about it. I said, we needed transparency. You're the president of transparency, and he agreed, and he put it out there. And currently now the president really is running against a brick wall. Lou could probably address it better than I could, but some of these alphabet agencies that are fighting him on getting this stuff out. And there's more out there, and we just got to keep pushing. We've got to keep pushing because these alphabet agencies are fighting the president. The same little clown that I talked to one time that said the president was on a need-to-know basis. Now, that's the kind of arrogance that we're dealing with. And it's not about little green men or flying saucers, sir. It's about what are we spending this money on, and why is the federal government telling us that they don't exist, when in fact they've been keeping files on them at least since 1947.
Lou, what is the congressman talking about here?
Lawrence, thanks for having me. Look, I got to tell you, this is a great day for America. The president has kept his promise to the American people, and members of Congress like Rep. Burchett and Luna, his colleagues Burleson and Moskowitz, are working very hard to deliver the promise that they made as well, and they have. The bottom line is that the congressman is absolutely right. There is a treasure trove of information that I had access to and was privy to, and my colleagues when I was at the Pentagon. These things are real, and they are here, and we have been lying to the American people. And as far as the alphabet agencies that are pushing this wall of resistance against the president, Rep. Burchett is absolutely right. I can tell you firsthand, just last week, there was an individual, the video just was released, who was testifying before Congress. He actually worked, he was a CIA official, and he admitted that elements of the CIA, now listen to this, elements of the CIA were listening in to conversations between ODNI, Tulsi Gabbard's DIG, and whistleblowers. Now, how is that possible without a FISA warrant to go ahead as an intelligence agency and listen into whistleblowers that want to go and have their testimony provided to Congress?
So, Congressman, you have oversight, and in full disclosure, I've known Johnny Ratcliffe since I was a kid, and no one has fought for more transparency in our government and the weaponization than he is. So who are we talking about within these agencies that are blocking information for the president?
It is, I would call it, it's classic deep state. And that's why I would warn people about some of these photos that are videos. They're pretty apparent that they're not a UFO or a UAP, and they're putting those out there to kind of cloud things, and they're putting out disinformation. It's departments. I told the president it's like peeling back the layers of the onion, but there's the one thing that they're underestimating is Donald J. Trump, because he's a bull in the china shop, and he doesn't care. He doesn't owe the war pimps at the Pentagon a dadgum thing. Everybody tries to shut him down, and that's when he's at its best, and that's when America's at its best, frankly. I have a hard time with a federal government that thinks that they're so arrogant that Americans can't handle what's going on with this. It's time for them to pull the curtain back and let us see what's going on.
So Lou, explain this to me, because you've had the pleasure of seeing some of the documents that we want to get access to. And so often we hear that releasing these sort of documents is going to put the country at risk. It's classified for a reason. Would you dispute that?
Sure. Well, Lawrence, it's a great question. There are elements, certainly, when you're trying to protect classified national intelligence, you're looking at protecting sources and methods primarily. But as you can see in these videos, there is no real sources and methods. And let me
Right.
go a step further, too. I would compare Donald Trump as a not only a bull in a china shop, but a hand grenade in the punch bowl. He is willing to do what's necessary to get this information out. And I applaud him for that. Now, with that said, there are elements of resistance, but there are also legitimate reasons to keep certain things classified. Clearly, we don't want to tip our hands to our foreign adversaries like China or Russia. If there is some sort of capability we successfully been able to reverse engineer, or worse, there is some sort of vulnerability that we have within our systems, meaning there is a vulnerability in our ability to neutralize one of these things that we are seeing now, as you're showing on your monitor.
Congressman, with the few minutes that I have left, a few seconds, I'm sorry. Do you get the impression that we're close? I know we don't have all the documents and we're not seeing full transparency just yet, but before this administration wraps up, do you expect American people to have a clear picture of if there is someone else besides us that's out there?
Yes, I do. I think the key is keeping President Trump healthy and keeping him in office and keeping him successful, because the powers that be, and this is not a Democrat, Republican, black-white issue. This is just a secrecy issue that the so-called intelligence agency. Look, when I first started getting into this and Lou and I became friends, I remember I'm standing up here not 100 feet from where I sit in Congress. I call it Center's Row. And a member of our leadership came up to me and said, the intelligence community is very unhappy with me right now. Not the committee, but the community. So you have to realize these people have incredible control over what's going on up here. And I think we need to fight them at every step of the way. And this president is doing that.
Yeah, Congressman, you and Lou definitely poked the bear, but it looks like we're going to be getting some information shortly. Thank you all so much, gentlemen, for joining the program.
All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with Me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.